Hey everybody, it's Cash, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing all of my thoughts on The Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson. It is a Cosmere novella, and I read it in the Arcanum Unbounded collection. And yeah, in the first half of this video, I'm going to be sharing with my non-spoiler review. So if you haven't read it, you have nothing to worry about. There are going to be no spoilers in the first half of this video, and then afterwards I will have my spoiler discussion. Starting with the plot, and the first thing I'll say is that this just flew by, the story flew by. I read the entire thing in just one afternoon, and I'm not sure how many pages it normally is, but in this it was just over 100 or so. Really enjoyed it, flew by, and I would recommend this to anybody. If you've never read Brandon Sanderson yet and you're just wanting a taste, this is perfect. You know, real short, real sweet. You can read it in a weekend, and it's pretty damn enjoyable. I have actually heard some people say that this is their favorite thing ever written by Brandon Sanderson. I'm not quite ready to go that far. I have read some of his other works that I do enjoy more than this, but this is really good. The plot of the story is very clear. It's explained really quickly, which is good because, there's not a lot of pages to work with in this. So it's explained really quickly, and we just kind of hop right into it. The story does follow a timeline structure, and what I mean is the main character is kind of in a race against time, and each chapter is like, day 1, day 30, day 52, all that sort of stuff. Um, and in my opinion, it's actually that kind of adds to the stakes of this story, which was cool. Despite this being just a novella, this did take place in the planet Cell. It is part of the Cosmere, and that is the same planet as Elantris. And I will say this is a lot better than that story. I know that was Sanderson's first published work, but this is a hell of a lot better. He definitely improved a lot by this point in his career. Um, I know he is writing Elantris sequels in the future, and I hope that these characters or some of the concepts introduced in this novella are brought up in those sequels, because honestly, I kind of like this better, and I would hope he wrote more of this instead, but hey, whatever. I think the main reason Sanderson decided to put the Emperor's Soul on Cell, on the same planet as Elantris, is because of the magic system he chose for this. Um, they both deal, or they both work in a very literal sense. They both deal with the physical world in a very literal way. I won't explain Elantris's magic system because that would kind of spoil the whole uh, big plot point in that story there. So go read that. I do recommend that for you, especially if you're trying to read everything in the Cosmere. Um, Forgery, though, which is the magic system in this, is definitely way different, and I like it a lot more. At least I think it's explained a lot better than the magic in Elantris, the door, I think it's called, the Andor, something like that. But Forgery deals with taking something in the physical world and altering its history to either create something new or fix something about it or just kind of alter it and change it in some way. Um, One example they give in the story is the character. There's a old beat up table in the workshop, and she is able to alter its history a bit, and it's all done with these stamps. They're called um, soul stamps. I can't quite exactly remember, forgive me, what they're exactly called in this story, but I know Sanderson got the inspiration for these stamps when he visited, I think, Taiwan, when he visited Asia, and that's pretty cool there. So what they do is how the magic works. They put all of this energy. I think, not really sure how it works in that sense, but they put all of it into this stamp. They alter the object's history, and when they put the stamp on the object, in theory, it'll absorb into it, and the magic will take hold, creating something new. So back to the table. It's this really beat up thing. Whoa, that just changed. Um, this really beat up table, and she is able to create this grand workbench after she's done with it. I know I'm probably doing a bad job of explaining that. Forgive me. Another example that she gives is, or doesn't quite work out for her, but say you're in a prison cell and you figure out the components of the wall that you're surrounded by. You could change the history of that wall to be weakened over time, and then you could go through that wall. If that makes sense. Um, you could also do it on a person, but it is incredibly more difficult than just doing it on a mundane object. And that brings us kind of more to the plot here. Our character is tasked with doing a nearly impossible forgery on a person in a very limited amount of time, and that is kind of where we're at. Um, One thing that surprised me, probably my biggest surprise from reading this novella, is just how philosophical it was, how philosophical in nature it was. Um, I'll explain kind of more of that in the spoiler section, but there were definitely concepts that I'm still thinking about now that I'm like, huh, wow, it definitely left you scratching your head, like, okay, making me think there, Sando, what the hell? Um, if I did have to say something negative about the plot, is that it was just too short. And like I said before, I really wish he would write more into that and not so much Elantris. But hey, I hope he's able to kind of tie these two parts of the world together in those sequels and kind of bring some of these characters back. All right, now moving to those characters, and our main character here is a girl named Shy. I say girl, I'm not really sure how old she is, but she is a master forger on Cell, and start off by saying, I haven't read everything by Sanderson, of course, just yet, but already Shy has become one of the better protagonists I've read so far. Um, what Sanderson is able to do with her character is very impressive. She is a very layered character, and he is able to make her very deep in just a short amount of time, which just blows me away. Um, and what's kind of drives me crazy too, but there's a beauty in it, is there's so many layers of her character that we're never going to be able to unpack, more than likely, and it just leaves you wanting more, and that's part of what's great. If I just had to say one trait, if I could pick one trait to describe Shy, it would be intelligent. She's probably one of the smartest characters I have ever read so far. I say that because forgery, it's not like you just put the info into the stamp. You need to know the info, right? So to change that wall, to weaken it, you have to know all the minerals, know all the components, know everything there is to know about it. To change that table, you have to know its history, know kind of how it was constructed, how it was made, what was used to construct it, what was used to make it. And as I said before, to change a person, it's incredibly more difficult. So you have to know about that person, their history, what makes them them, and that sort of thing. So yeah, she is very, 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 very smart. Um, some, some I have heard and read that some people have called her a Mary Sue character, and they do have an argument. I get what they mean because she is kind of good at everything. But, I do think Sanderson explains a lot of that very well in this novella, in this story. This is kind of a minor spoiler, but without context, doesn't really matter. She can kind of read people very well. Part of her training and becoming a forger, she has to pick up on the ins and outs of kind of what make people tick and stuff. So, as I said, she's highly intelligent, and she can read people almost on like a Criminal Minds type profiler level. Um, so I bring that up because there's certain points in the story where like, well, how could she know that about that person? But he explains it. He does explain why she is good at everything that she's good at, if that makes sense. So yeah, she might be a Mary Sue in a way, but it doesn't bother me as much here because it's just explained really well and kind of how forgery works. And she's done it to herself before. She can kind of change her own past. Um, so that also explains why she can kind of be good at whatever she wants to be good at. But hey, and I know I've already kind of said this, but when I finished the story, it just left me wanting more Shy, and yeah, that is the biggest takeaway from this. All right, the second most important person in this novella is the Arbiter Gautona, and he is kind of the direct opposite of Shy here, except he is also highly intelligent. I don't mean it like that, but what I mean is if there's anything to disagree on, they kind of disagree here at the beginning, really until the end of the novella, and I think that's really cool because it's their conversations. It's the conversations between Shai and Gautona that lead to those philosophical questions I was kind of mentioning earlier. And also, what I really appreciate about the story overall is Sanderson kind of doesn't really take a side on those issues, and it kind of just makes you think a little bit for it being such a short story. So that's really cool. There are other characters in this story, and really because it would have felt too small to just have Galtona and Shai talking in a room the whole time. But the Blood Sealer, Captain Zoo, is it Farva, something like that? The other Arbiters. At the end of the day, I really just felt those other characters were there to better develop Shai. For the world building and setting, there's really not much to say in this. Really, the only world building here is the magic, the forgery that he introduces here, that whole concept. The setting is mostly just in one room. Um, I know the side of the world we're on here. It's the Rose Empire, I believe, but we really don't learn much about them other than the Emperor's name is Ashravan, and he has arbiters, and that's kind of it. Um, we know this is pretty much on the other side of the world from Elantris, like I said before, but honestly, the one thing Elantris might have done better is the world building, mostly because, like I said, it just kind of took place in that one room there. But in that one room, it's Shai does use forgery quite a bit to spruce it up and change it and alter it where it's pretty much an entirely different place by the end of the story than what it was at the beginning of the story, and that's kind of how Sanderson gives us those examples into kind of how the magic works as well. Right, moving on to pacing now, and it's no secret that Sanderson can occasionally slow things down in the middle of his books, and he really wants to draw you into the world he's created and really develop those characters and make you feel like you're a part of that world. And the Emperor's Soul does not do that at all. It's all gas, no brakes. What I mean is, there's no fluff in this at all. There's no long middle section. Uh, Kind of this whole thing kind of feels like the Sanderlanche, if you will. It happens really quickly. And I mean, despite there wasn't a lot of action in this, I don't want to come off that way, but despite that, I was excited the whole time reading it. It flew by. Every sentence mattered. Like I said, there was no fluff, and everything was to just serve the overall story. Overall, I am so happy I read this novella after I heard about it for such a long time. Anybody who wants to read those other Cosmere stories, this collection is fantastic. It's how I've been kind of reading all of them so far. Um, with this now behind me, I have read everything there is to read in the Celish system so far. I've read this, I've read Elantris, I've read The Hope of Elantris, and I am happy I read this last because it is my favorite of the bunch by far. Um, I've gone back and forth with my rating here a little bit. I didn't know if I was going to do a 4 or a 4.5, but at the end of the day, I'm settling on a high 4 out of 5, just because there are other Sanderson books I have enjoyed more than this that I have put at a 4.5, like the first and third Mistborn books. Um, so this is sticking at a 4, but I've decided, just like for my Will of Time books and read through, after I finish everything, after I read everything in the Cosmere, I'm going to go back and reassess all of my ratings and see kind of where everything lies at the end of the day. All right, now we're going to switch gears and talk about some spoilers. This is going to be the spoiler discussion. I'm keeping it in the same video in this one, just because it's a novella. I'm really not sure. I'm kind of just going to, depending on the story, I'll split the discussion or not. In this one, I am keeping it in the same video. So now, without being vague anymore, here's what the plot is about. Forgery is considered a major crime in this part of the world. It is looked down upon. It is considered just crude and vulgar. Shai is a master forger, so she is just a big no-no for society. She is captured by the Empire because her and her um, partner in crime, are trying to steal something from the Emperor, and in doing so, her partner betrays her, and she ends up in a jail cell. So that's kind of where things are starting with Shai. But there's a bigger problem in the Empire than just a forger in the midst, is that there was an assassination attempt on the Emperor, on Ashravan, and he was left in a vegetative state. They nearly succeeded. They killed his wife and left him a vegetable. Um, their doctors, they're pretty much forgers, but they have a different title, and it's kind of how the government uses it without kind of it being frowned upon. But hey, um, they healed his body, but could not heal his mind. bringing us to Shai and her situation. They give her 100 days to recreate the Emperor's soul, name of the story, and they say if she does so, she will be let free and everyone will be happy. Um, so she agrees because she doesn't really have a way out of it. And as she's working on it, she kind of quickly realizes that it's impossible because she has to know everything there is to know about this guy. And yeah, she got his journals, access to his journals, but it's a really tough task. And she starts to consider it impossible and is trying to actively find a way to escape. But she knows she has to make it believable that she's still working on the Emperor's soul while coming up with a escape plan, which is made incredibly difficult because of the blood sealer who's introduced, and that's kind of a cool concept in this story. He also uses forgery, but in a different way. He kind of deals with blood and kind of the undead necromancy vibes. He comes every day and takes a little bit of Shai's blood, puts it on the door, and that would alert him if she were to try and escape. She starts to have constant meetings with Gautona, as I said. He's the second most important character here, and she meets with him because he was at one point very close with Ashravan, kind of knows everything there is to know about this guy for the most part. So she needs to speak with him so she can get a better understanding of the Emperor. Um, and this is where we kind of learn Shai has split her own soul, not split, but she's recreated her own soul a few different times, and they're called essence marks or soul stamps, kind of. And we learn that the Empire has the possessions of her essence marks, kind of making her a little bit more helpless, um, making the escape even harder. And that is also part of her prize, that not only will she gain her freedom if she succeeds, then she will get these essence marks back as well. So it's kind of those discussions between Shai and Gautona that lead to those philosophical moments I was talking about earlier. And they're kind of one of the main themes of this story. The concept of forgery as a piece of art, or if a forger can create something or mimic something and use the exact same skills that the person who made it did, be it painting, sculpting, whatever it is that considered art? And this is kind of brought up because Galtonis is impressed with her ability and says, why are you wasting your life being a forger when you can just use these talents to be better and do good, if you will. And she's at first kind of insulted and says, "What do you mean? This is art. Don't you ever say it's not art? In fact, that thing you have on the wall over there that you think is real, I actually faked, and that's also a forgery. And everyone was respecting it like it was art. And the real one I destroyed." And when she kind of says that she destroyed it, Deltona changes from impressed to just disgusted by Shai, and it really puts a damper in their relationship there. Um, but think of that concept of forgery on a deeper scale here, because the concept here going on here in the Emperor's Soul, it's that, but taken to the 12th power here, because she's working on someone's soul. She's trying to forge a human's soul. So if they're arguing if a forgery of a painting is considered art or real, if you use forgery on a person, is that a real person anymore? And honestly, I'm not sure. And that's kind of one of these debates that he kind of leaves it up for the readers to decide. I said earlier that the other characters in this kind of only, I thought, were there to serve Shai's development, and I'll explain that a bit more, starting with Captain Zhu. His character, he's kind of just there as a threatening presence the whole time. He's constantly threatening that he's going to kill Shai. Um, and Obviously, he never does. In fact, she outsmarts him at the end of the day by making him fall through the floor that I think she weakened over time or something like that. Pretty cool. And again, to develop Shai's character, she outsmarted him and makes him look like a dummy while also showcasing forgery. Um, the other arbiter, Frava, she comes in and she wants to. She tells Shai to kind of put a backdoor in the Emperor's soul in his brain to kind of let her finagle and manipulate the Empire a bit. And Shai says, "Yeah, sure, whatever, I'll do it just to kind of stay alive." And she has no intention of letting that happen. So that also develops her, shows that she kind of understands that that would not help anybody. That would not be good for the empire. That would not be good for society to do that. So just in those little moments, it makes better. It shows just how deep Shai's character can really be in just these few hundred pages. The Blood Sealer. I'm not sure if we actually ever hear his name, but the Blood Sealer. Um, he, I thought, was there to mostly give Shai a person to profile and analyze other than the Emperor, other than Ashravan, and because she's kind of able to pick up on his schedule, and he shows up drunk some days or hungover, and he's late others, barely making it in time to reseal the door. And over the 100 days, she picks up that he's actually kind of homesick and missing his girlfriend. And yeah, so again, his character was there just to kind of show how well Shai can read people, I thought. All right, so of course, she completes the work here on day 100, and she starts to make her attempt to escape the Empire, flee from the castle, if you will. But she's like, no, I have to see if this works. So she grabs the soul stamp and runs on over to Ashravan's quarters. She's able to slip past the guards, not so much slip past, but trick them into letting her through. And she gets in there, stamps him, waits for a couple seconds, and then what do you know? It takes like no problem. All of her work paid off, and the Emperor's soul is renewed, and he comes back too, and is immediately like, "Oh, what the hell is going on?" She sort of explains kind of what happened and who she is. He thanks her, but says, "You have to leave. No one's going to understand what happened here. Run." So she listens to him. She immediately flees, running into Gautona right away. Their relationship is sort of patched here, happy endings all around. He gives her the essence marks back, and then, of course, she becomes a badass warrior. She uses one of the essence marks to change her own history, to making it so she spent 15 years in some like barbarian tribe, 15 years of combat experience, and she goes just as the Blood Sealer and his little skeleton minions are threatening her. Cool little fight scene. There had to be a fight scene at the end of a Sanderson story. She kind of messes them all up, and grabs the Blood Sealer and tells him to go back home to his girlfriend, which, is a little silly, but hey, it made me laugh. Um, she did take a lot of damage here, I will say. Like, she kind of got really messed up and is still able to escape. Um, but whatever. Story wraps up with Shai making her great escape, and it's kind of left open ended with her character. We know she escapes the Empire, or the kind of where everyone's chasing her there, but beyond that, we have no idea. It says she's going to go try and track down the person who betrayed her, but who knows if she ever will. It does show Gautona and Ashravan speaking back in his quarters, and Gautona is blown away by just how similar this version of Ashravan is. She nailed it. Shai nailed the Emperor's Soul forgery. All the little mannerisms are there. His little the ways he talks and things like that. The ways he speaks. My bad. Uh, Overall, he's very impressed, and he starts to kind of come around to the idea of forgery being an art, and says, well, this is my friend, this is the Emperor, this is my pal, the person I kind of grew up with and have known for years, and that's him. So at least that's kind of what I got out of it. It seems like Gautona came around to the idea of forgery, and that he considers the Emperor's soul to be real, so obviously he would consider forgery and whatever is forged to also be real. Last thing I'll say about that is, kind of already said it several times, I know he's writing a bunch of sequels. I know Sanderson is going back on to Cell eventually. Please, I want more Shai. I want more forgery. Please somehow fit it in. That would be so, so damn cool. All right, yeah, so there you have it. Those were all of my thoughts on The Emperor's Soul. I plan to review and discuss everything I read on the channel. So if you want to see more Cosmere content or just other great stories, hit that subscribe button. I do appreciate it. If you like today's video and you want to support it, please drop a like. It does help a lot there. And please let me know in the comment section what you thought of The Emperor's Soul. And yeah, that's it today. I will talk to you guys next time.